So I have had the pleasure of knowing this wonderful lady for over 30 years. And if you want a story about resilience, then this is it. It really showcases for me how grit can get you through some really difficult times. It's about challenge and it's about portfolio careers, which we'll get into towards the end. Great careers aren't built in the big moments alone. They're built in everyday choices, bold little moves, and gutsy next steps. Welcome to Little Moves, Big Careers. Let's dive straight in. Sonia Allen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Caroline. Lovely to be here, although it's very bizarre.
It is a bit bizarre. I think when you know somebody so well, it can be strange to kind of put the formal context around it, can't it? A little bit. Yeah. So where I'd like to start, Sonia, is taking you right back to the very beginning. This is the point where I think kind of your grit really started to show itself. So, Sonia, take us back to the 17-year-old Sonia. What was going on for her?
I can go back even further than that, just to say that when I was 12, I decided that I wanted to be a PE teacher.
Okay.
Right? So I'd set up my own gymnastic club in the garden.
Of course you had.
People had membership cards to come through the gate, and I made little badges for them. So I kind of already had this desire to coach and to teach in that way. However, I did kind of go off
theatrics as well.
Yeah, I did go off the track a little bit because I didn't do so well in my O levels, which were then the GCSE equivalent. And so at 17, I'm doing my A levels with the desire to still be a PE teacher, but not knowing whether I'm going to be able to make the grade or not. And something significant happened in our household. My mum had been a single parent since I was 8, and we'd had a pretty tough time growing up. But she'd met somebody, and he was in the army and wanted to get married because he'd got a posting to Hong Kong. So my mum and stepdad then went to Hong Kong with my sister. However, I was just going in the sixth form and decided I didn't want to go. I want to stay at home because I've got a boyfriend.
Oh,
of course. The one reason to stay. It's all about life lessons, I'm telling you.
Isn't it just?
So, and also I was midway through my studies and still wanted to go on to university. I came from a family where nobody had been to uni before. So I stayed at home in my mum's house that my mum had fought tooth and nail for to keep when my dad had left us. And she took on a couple of tenants, a couple, and a single person. So we had 3 tenants living in the house with myself at 17, and I was looking after the home. Because my mum had worked so hard to keep our home and to keep everything that we had, I wanted to keep the house just like my mum had kept it. So I was doing the housekeeping. I found myself doing the shopping for the tenants and their washing with the old twin tub washing machine, and looked after the dog as well.
And they let you?
And they let me, yeah. I just instinctively or naturally just took on that kind of parenting role to look after these people, probably just emulating my mum and what she'd done. Yeah.
Best intentions and all that, but you were doing all of that while studying, and of course, your boyfriend, which is, we mustn't forget about him.
Yeah.
That must have got really hard for you. How long were you doing it for?
So I did that for about 6 months, and it was really tough, but you only see that on reflection.
Yeah.
Whilst you're immersed in that melee of things going along, you don't actually feel that anything can change. You can't see a way out. You think that this is your choice, and this is something that I learned over the years, that there's always another route. Yeah. There's always another way. But at the time when you're stuck in the middle of that, you can't see. And so 6-7 months on, and I went to my grandparents for Christmas, and I never went back.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky that I had that safety net.
So obviously that was the Christmas, and you were doing your exams for that
following June, May,
summer.
June.
How did you get on?
Not as well as I would have liked to. not good enough to get into uni that first year. So that was a bit of a shock, because it's also, that forward planning. I only had the one plan. I'm going to uni. I've done my UCAS to uni, and then I didn't get the grades. I'm living 13 miles away from my school, but I don't get a bus pass. So I cycle to school each way. So there were lots of other things that kind of came in at that time, and no excuses really. I obviously just didn't study hard enough.
Yeah.
The predicted grades were there and I just didn't get it. So I actually had to do a repeat year of my A-levels. So I moved to Doncaster then, where they had an FE college, but it had halls of residence. But when I found out when I was there, my local authority wouldn't pay my fees or my halls of residence fees.
So what happened then?
And I couldn't get a grant. But in the end, what I ended up doing was just sleeping on the floor of somebody's room. So I didn't have any fees to pay for my accommodation for a year. And my classes, two of the lecturers wouldn't allow me to attend the lessons because they were in the union and I wasn't paying fees, and therefore they said I shouldn't be able to attend. One tutor did allow me, so I continued with my sports studies, and the other two A-levels I did private, like my own study, and just did it myself. So that was quite a tough year in itself.
You didn't, you talked earlier about you only had the one plan. And so that was when back going to university and that didn't work. It sounds like you had a one plan here as well. But you were just absolutely so determined to make it work no matter what, rather than going back home again.
Yeah. And because that would have been the easy option, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I still had my vision. And it's really interesting talking about this with you now, because I don't think about this, about how, we go through life and we repeat things. They're just small things, but we repeat them over and over again. Potentially it's a habit. Maybe it's something I've always done. But when faced with some kind of adversity, we find a way around it.
Yeah.
And so repeated my A-levels, still didn't get good enough grades to go on to do a teaching degree. So I went to Durham and I did a H&D. You'll love this as well, in business and finance with sports coaching as the add-on, because I thought, if I can't be a teacher, I could be a coach, and that's pretty much the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's not. But in my little world at the time, that was the same.
Okay, so you were starting to have alternative plans at this point, which is good. Because I think what I notice about you, Sonia, so if I'm faced with a problem like Doncaster, for example, I'd be going, right, okay, so I'm not supposed to be at Doncaster. What am I supposed to be doing? And I would look for an alternative. What I see with you is that you're faced with Doncaster's not working. You're going to go, I'm going to make it work. So it's quite interesting how we deal with problems in different ways. Neither is right or wrong. It's just what we're choosing to do, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting because obviously you've done one of your episodes about signs and signals.
Yeah.
And maybe if you saw those signs, most people would be going, oh my gosh, this isn't right. This is fate telling me I shouldn't be here.
But Sonia goes, no,
blunder on
I'm going to do it.
But I'm stubborn.
Not at all. But that's the thing, isn't it? Because you do make those things happen. You find a way. You're incredibly resourceful in whatever you need to handle. So you did your HND. You were still very much moving towards being a teacher of sports. Yeah. Well, what happened next?
Coaching. So whilst I was at Durham, I set up my own fitness classes. So I ran exercise to music aerobic fitness classes. So did my own exercise classes there, did my qualification, got lots of coaching badges. But this is when my career started to develop, and this is where I saw that perhaps there is something about me that can get me through, and people will engage with me, because like you do when you're at uni, you're in your last year, you start applying for jobs.
Yeah.
So I got through to a private leisure company that had squash and fitness clubs, nightclubs, bowling alleys, and I got through to interview to be a trainee manager with them. This was potentially my first real job after the Saturday market and everything else.
Yeah. I
went for the interview. It was a 2-day assessment interview. So there was 12 candidates on the assessment. Well, on day one, the evening of, they took us all to a very nice restaurant. And then they took us on to a nightclub after one of their nightclubs, because they want to see how you interact socially and how you deal in, you develop in those situations. I had a pair of white trousers on. This is almost like a Caroline story, actually. Pair of white trousers on, and the guy opposite me had a glass of red wine and he knocked it over and it went all over my white trousers, which then became pink. And for me, I kind of like it was an accident. It just is what it is. Obviously, there's the assessors sitting around the table as well. They're watching everybody's reactions. We're applying for jobs to work on licensed premises where
Yeah.
people drink alcohol and their behavior changes. So they obviously watched and saw how I dealt with that. I didn't think about it at the time, but I think it meant that I got a tick in a box that night because
Excellent.
I did not react in a bad
Yeah.
way. It just was what it was, and you just get on with it. Needless to say, I did go on and get the post as being the trainee manager.
And during that period, you travelled quite a lot with it, didn't you? You had to move around clubs. How did you find assimilating the new areas and getting on with people in that situation?
Do you know what? I absolutely loved it. I think naturally I am a Romany. I travel, and wherever I go, I seem to be able to just set up camp. I don't necessarily have attachments in one area or another. I feel like I can make myself at home in many places. So I feel nourishment from working with and for or all together with those people. It works for me. So I went from the leisure industry and I did that and progressed really quickly from a training manager in 4 months to being an assistant manager. And I was a general manager after my first year of being employed by the company.
Yeah.
So in my bold way, after another 6 months, I put a proposal together, asked for a meeting with the chair of the company, met him in his office and said, I think there's a gap in the organisation. I think you need a national manager to look after the club, to do X, Y, and Z. I'm willing to do that and believe I have the skills. But in return for that, I would like a salary increase and I would like a company car. And he just went, yeah.
Brilliant.
And, you could call it luck or you can call it instinct. For me, it was like, this was a gut feeling. And I was really bold doing it because I was only 22 at the time, but it worked. So I did that. But this is where my first blocker came in. So after the chair of the company has embraced me doing this, I went on to do the job. And unfortunately, during that time, I had a bad car accident.
Right.
Which did leave me. I was in a coma for 5 days. I'd got 3 fractures in my neck and serious head injuries, with the possibility of brain damage, which might explain some of my behaviours, and a 50-50 chance of recovery. So obviously I didn't know this at the time because I'm having a nice sleep. Nonetheless, I wake up from the sleep and things are different within my workplace because I wasn't able to go back. I was unable to go back to work at first due to physical disability at the time. So I've been off work for about a month and I got a call from the chair of the organisation. I'd had some lovely flowers and I said, thank you for the flowers. And then he said, I just want to see when, not how are you, but when are you coming back? And I said, well, I'm really sorry. I said, at the moment, I don't know. I can't even pour a kettle at the moment, never mind drive a car. And he said, well, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to put a stop to that. And I didn't really understand what he meant until my next payday was, and I didn't get paid. And he basically had said he had to terminate my contract because I wasn't able to work. But there was a clause in my contract that I was entitled to full pay for so long and half pay continuing on from that. So I went to the finance director. I received a check in the post, but I got no apology. And I was this in-between person to the head office and senior leaders, to the full operational process. And I felt I wasn't valued. And I thought, if that's happened to me, how would they treat other staff that aren't in as fortunate a position as me financially because of the earnings I've got, but maybe are a part-time receptionist or something like that? Their whole livelihood could be taken away from them because they'd been ill. Wasn't too sure what I was going to do. Just on the off chance, somebody said to me, why don't you do teaching? I was like, really? I've always wanted to teach, but I don't have the qualifications. And that's when I learned that you could do a PGCE because of your industrial background or experience. And I could go into teaching that way. And that was the route I went.
Fantastic. So before we go on to the teaching bit, there are a couple of things that I'd like to pick up. Going back to you putting in the proposal at 22 to be the conduit between operations and strategy to make sure that everything was flowing and everything that was happening. I think that's a really interesting move because it's bold, and most people would look at that situation and think, that's not my job. That's not my responsibility. But what you did was that you saw a gap that you believed you had the skills to fill, and therefore you took action and you did something about it. You put a proposal in and you got accepted. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because whilst you were in the job for probably under a year in total, weren't you, with the accident and what happened?
Yeah.
It was really vital experience for you.
Yeah.
That set you such a good foundation for everything that you did afterwards, really. But it was that choice to take responsibility, to do something that I think is just so interesting, rather than just waiting passively for somebody to move you forward.
Yeah, I think it was a bold step to make. But
do you remember feeling that it was bold at the time, or was it just what you did?
It was just what I did. But when I look at kind of my career path and how I do change, I do a little cycle.
Yeah.
I feel that I'd probably done the cycle that I wanted to do already, and I was looking for my next challenge. I do get bored quite quickly. Well, I say quickly, it might be a couple of years, but I'm forever kind of thinking, what next?
Yeah.
For me, I never found that place where I just wanted to be and stay.
Yeah.
So I feel like I go into a place and I want to work some magic and do what is required. But then once it's done, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
I don't want to outstay my welcome, because then you'd plateau, and I don't think I would want to plateau.
So you're 22, 23, somebody says, why don't you become a teacher? And you do your PGCE.
Yeah, so I finished off the time with the leisure company until the academic year started, and then I got myself a job. You'd love this. Got myself a part-time job to earn a little bit of cash while I'm studying as a shoe sprayer in a bowling alley. I spray the shoes. I was fortunate. I'd bought a house. I'd had tenants when I was 17, so having tenants when I'm in my 20s is no problem. So my mortgage was covered by the tenants whilst I was studying. And it was absolutely purely natural, instinctive thing for me to do, to stand up and teach and be present around people, helping them learn things, understand things. And I just absolutely loved it from day one.
Yeah, I think what I see of you is that you're a natural facilitator. You want to draw the best out of people in the way that you do it.
Yeah.
So you talked about, you're on stage and you're performing if you're teaching. One of the things that we talk about a lot that I think is really important is actually whenever you're in front of people, you're performing. And I think if you're a teacher, you kind of turn it on because you think you've got that group in front of you. But whatever job you do, if you're in front of anybody, whether it be one person, the team, a senior member of team, you're performing. You have to make the most of that opportunity that is presented to you at that time. And if you take that back to your 22-year-old self, you were presented with an opportunity that nobody else had spotted, but you spotted. You performed because you filled it, and you went on to do great things. So I think that's really a really interesting analogy, actually, about that being a performance, because it is so important to recognize that we are all dealing with people all the time.
And obviously preparing yourself for your audience as well, because every audience is different. So when you've got your team of people that you're, be it nurturing them, leading, guiding, or kicking up the backside, whatever method is the way you're going to go, you have to be able to understand their psychology. So I think that it's interesting that teaching was the first route that I've kind of went after. I say the first route after the industry, leisure industry, but those skills that you learn as a teacher play such an important part in any kind of leadership. And it's the transitional skills that I think that have really helped me evolve from being a teacher to being self-employed consultant and traveling around the world. It's the transitional skills that you build along the way, and having the knowledge or understanding and perception to see that you can use those things somewhere else.
Absolutely. So what do you think those critical skills are that you've nurtured through this teaching route?
People, relationship development, relationship management, communications, listening to other people, asking lots of questions to get the best out of them, showing genuine interest. And it doesn't matter what sector you're in, what organization you're in, or what task you've been given, you need other people to get by.
Oh, completely. Did you ever have to deal with anybody that was going performance issues or done something wrong? How did you handle that?
Went into teaching, did 2.5 years in one post, and then got a promotion to being a head of faculty. And that meant a geographic move down south. And I'd got this post against 2 internal applicants. Okay, so I had two males, mature males, that were then in my team that had both not been successful at the post because I got the job. And as my kind of intro to learning my faculty and learning about the team that I was going to be working with, I decided to do one-to-one meetings with each one of them. And this one person that came in for my first one-to-one, and I said, so sat down and said, okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself. He said, well, I'll tell you this. I don't agree with management's decision to appoint you, so I haven't really got much more to say. And I remember being absolutely thrown by this. Of course, one, I wasn't expecting it because I've got my little naive hat and Disney World is in my head and everything's lovely. And two, he was so blunt. Yeah. But also, he was quite scary. And at that point in time, you have to come up with a response. But I remember. So
what did you say?
I said to him, well, that might be your thought, but it's my job to prove you wrong.
Ooh,
nice.
And
I don't know where it came from at that time. It was obviously dug deep and it came out.
Yeah.
But you know what? He ended up being my best team player.
How long did it take?
It probably took about 6 months.
Yeah.
Because every now and again I had to keep reminding him, because he tried to tell me how to do my job. He'd pass me in the corridor and he'd say, oh, I don't know, da, 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 da. And I had to say, thank you for sharing that, but this is my responsibility, so I will deal with it how I see fit. And there was a couple of occasions those things happened. But after about 6 months, I just remember he'd completely turned round. And, you know, it was because of my style. I hadn't gone in there with a bulldozer saying I was the best to do this and to do the job. But I had nurtured the team, and I helped them to realise that as much as you might be the leader of a team, captain of a team, or whatever your title is, you don't have to be everything in the team, because the team only works by everybody's parts being played. And I don't think that they thought that would happen. I think they thought I would just go in and take over. But they all had their strengths to give, and it was a really successful team. We were great. Yeah.
That's a lovely story, isn't it? And it sounds like that period was one of really great pride for you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when it was part of my key development, because this was the first time I'd been put in academic leadership position. Yeah. And yes, we all go through this imposter syndrome that we call it now, of thinking, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this job. You know, on day one, when you're going in there, you're thinking, how am I going to do it? And then getting faced with a member of staff shooting you down straight away. Yeah. It's hard to keep bouncing back because you feel you are going against the tide, but it worked out really well, and it was really good for my own development, for going onwards and upwards and building my confidence. Absolutely.
and my ability in what was next after that. And that's where it went on.
So from there, was that when you went to Civic College?
Yes.
After
Yeah.
that?
So my responsibility at that particular college was for arts, sport and languages, which was an interesting mix. And so it was a little bit of a tricky balance, but at the same time, having some knowledge about different personalities to work and help and support people. I think the most difficult part for me, like you say, Caroline, is when you are faced like a roadblock.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter which diversion you choose to go or solution you choose to give them, they will still say no.
Yeah.
I'd put in a bid for a very large amount of money, which really developed the college, it developed all of the sports facilities, it developed the relationships. Again, it comes back to relationships with local businesses and local community. So it was a massive influence locally, and it was successful. But what that triggered for me again was the fact that I felt that once I'd done that, it was time for me to look and move on for something else. And it was as a key milestone for me in my career. And you will remember this really well, Caroline, because it was 2004 when this happened. And I decided that if I couldn't get an internal promotion to the next level to be a vice principal, then I needed to move on from that organization.
Fair enough.
So I started to apply for other jobs of a vice principal role. And I also then said to myself and set myself a goal: if I don't get the job that I want or that I deserve by the September, then I'm going to go and travel for a year. I spoke about it with G, my husband, and he was like, okay, if that's what you need to do, but I'm still working here. So I went I had 2 interviews for posts that I felt that I could do and that could be successful at. Both interviews I got down to the last 2, but wasn't successful in either. And so the message here is get feedback.
Yeah.
So I got feedback, and both lots of feedback were pretty much the same, that I had got a high level of understanding of curriculum in education, but I didn't have a lot of experience on the business side of it. So the financial side of it, the HR side of it, and that kind of thing. Now, in my day back working in the leisure industry, I did do my CPD qualification as well. So I was a postgraduate with CPD, human resources. And the feedback was you didn't have enough knowledge on this. So I literally handed my notice in. I didn't get the job I wanted. We went and worked at the Olympics in Athens, and then came back with no job, with the plan to the end of September, I will go traveling. And in the first week of September, I got a call to ask me if I would be interested in a job working for a flexible recruitment company, being an account manager with London and the Southeast colleges. And that gave me the opportunity to learn the finance and the business side of the education business. And it was a great opportunity because it ticked the boxes that I'd been lacking when I was trying to get the promotion prior to that.
That is such a fascinating moment really in your career, isn't it? Because you had the experience to do the VP's job. You absolutely did. You know, you'd been bid writing, you'd secured funding, you were managing quite significant budgets at the college, you were dealing with people, and you had been since your early 20s in some really difficult situations. But because it's not the tick box that the automatic system almost is expecting you to have down, you didn't get it. And I've got to share this, because this to me is a classic Sonia. So Sonia and I went and did, we were volunteers for the Olympics in Athens. And we were a little bit concerned about how much it was going to cost us, because we started looking at the cost of accommodation. And of course, because it was the Olympics, all the prices had really gone up, and we were going to be out there for 6 weeks. So it was going to cost us a huge amount of money. And of course, the flights had gone up as well. Sonia saw an advert by Virgin Money, and it was tell us about your perfect day. if you're the winner, we'll pay for your one day. So my understanding is Sonia wrote to them and said, it's not just one day, actually, it's 6 weeks. I want to go to the Olympics. Guess what? She won.
Yeah, it was about volunteering. So it wasn't just about going on holiday for 6 weeks and being on the beach.
And we did work really hard. We did work really, really hard. So, yeah, so Sonia got her accommodation paid for. So, going right back, she was sleeping on the floors in Doncaster. I was sleeping on Sonia's floor for the duration of the Olympics. But it was absolutely incredible, wasn't it? And that was the first time that either of us had done like a real block of a volunteering experience. And we could just talk about that particular experience in an episode because we both learned so much. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. And I think the biggest thing that I took from that is that it is this thing, you always have a choice. There were so many people there that were using the volunteering at the Athens Olympics just to get a tick on their CV. And they really weren't putting themselves out at all, were they? And they weren't enjoying it. They were bored. Whereas Sonia and I just really put ourselves out. We were absolutely going to make most of this experience, and we loved every single minute of it, didn't we? Absolutely phenomenal.
It was fantastic. And it was potentially another gateway for what's next. It's these small little things that in isolation, doing a bit of volunteering at the Olympics, it's not paid. It's not, like you say, career progression. Some people might use it to put on their CV. We didn't see it like that. But what does it lead to? You've got to think about who you might meet during those opportunities, or what might come from that, and how it might lead forward in the future. And just building your own confidence again. And you just being out there to do something different that's out of your comfort zone that you wouldn't normally do. But again, it comes back to those transferable skills and working with other people.
Yeah, it was just incredible. So you came back, you got your job there, which gave you the business finance skills. Were there any key learnings that you draw from that one?
Again, relationships.
Yeah.
I had the most incredible team.
Yeah.
And one of the great achievements for me is when one of your team members gets a promotion. I've still got those people asking me to do references or testimonies that are still in contact with me now, that were my staff. That, I could think of Carly and Carly Pimento. She was a leisure centre attendant when I first met her. And now she's just thriving. She's gone through from being a first aid lecturer and tutor. And I know that it's partly due to the confidence that she learned and gained whilst I was working with her.
Yeah. You said that so beautifully, because it really is. I think sometimes it can be hard to find what are the markers of success. So it's lovely to hear that your marker of success is how successful people are that you're working with.
Yes, definitely.
Lovely. So we're moving on now. You're towards the end of your 30s. And I remember going on a ski holiday with you. And we went on a ski holiday and you got really, really ill. You couldn't get out of bed for the whole week, could you?
No.
And it was like, there's something seriously wrong here.
Yeah. But just to put it in perspective, I've always been quite a healthy person. I don't drink alcohol. I've never smoked. My background, sport and fitness, always kept myself in reasonably good shape. So there wasn't anything that I could understand why this was happening. So when I got back home, I did go to the GP, and the GP said it's probably food poisoning. It'll go in a few days. 10 days later, I was still really struggling. Cutting a long story short, eventually was told that I needed to have a hysterectomy due to endometriosis. And when they did the hysterectomy, they discovered I'd also got tumours in my intestine and I'd got bowel cancer. So I just turned 40 at this point. So it was a massive shock, because it had gone undiscovered for the 9 months. I had to have 3 lots of surgery around that, and then 6 months of chemo, which was testing over a period of time at work as well.
You were going through it. It was a horrendous time, because at one point we just had no idea whether you were going to survive it or not, did we? And I think what compounded the situation at that time, you're obviously very focused in on needing to deal with this and get your body clean of the cancer, and at the same time where you were working had a restructure. And restructures don't wait for anybody. You can have cancer, but the restructure's going on, and you have to deal with that.
So we were going through a restructure, and I was off work at the time, being quite ill, because it wasn't just a case of waiting for treatment or surgery. I'd been recovering from the hysterectomy and then was waiting for the next lot of surgery, and I'd hit a particular low point in my own resilience, and the restructure was happening, and the principal came to visit me, and I'm an assistant principal in a large academy trust, and said, "Sonia, you need to apply for your job." Most of the time, I was really positive. I didn't get depressed or anything in that way. However, there were moments when I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be around in September to take that job. So that would be really unfair of me to do it. The week later, it discovered I'd got sepsis, and I'd got some fat necrosis. So there was poisoning in my body, and I had to have a third lot of surgery. And I do remember saying to my husband, I don't think I can do this anymore. And I know that there are many people out there that have been in a similar situation with their health, or even worse situation. And my heart goes out to them, because it is a really tough time. I am really so grateful for my life, and that every day from then has been a bonus. But you do put into question everything that's happening around you, and what are your priorities at that point in time. And I had been so career driven. I wanted to be a principal. That was where I was going. The trajectory was right. I was on path and on target. And then some little spanners come in the way.
Yeah. You were going to be a principal, and you were going to be a hockey umpire at the next Olympics.
Yeah, for the 2012 Olympics.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah. So this was in 2010. Yeah. And my aspiration was to be a national umpire for the hockey at the Olympics, driven from the seed that had been sown when we worked at 2004 Olympics. And that plan had to be sidelined, because realistically I wasn't going to make it for the 2012. But with my own usual kind of drive of still being involved in the Olympics, I then applied and did for the opening ceremony, and I auditioned, and I was in the opening ceremony for the 2012 Olympics, which was just awesome. And then obviously, and I also was a Paralympic torchbearer, so I kind of was still involved in the 2012 Olympics with my own commitment and drive to do that, which is pretty impressive, but I don't know where it came from.
We're all just going like, course she is. Course she is. So, whilst you're recovering from cancer, you touched on, it does make you question what you're doing and what's important in life. How did having cancer, do you think, change what you do now and the way that you are as a person?
People say it's that life-changing, it's like a light bulb moment, things like that. Not for everybody, but for me it was, because I've already said I was so career driven.
Yeah.
We didn't have children. My husband worked a job where he worked shifts, so that meant that I could stay up at night working away, beavering away. And being so ill was probably a real lesson for me, that I needed to just take stock, and I needed to take some time out. And if I hadn't done that, who knows well, I probably wouldn't be doing this interview right now. So it made me think about what my future was and how could I continue, and what did I really want to do. So as part of my plan, so I had a year with the surgeries and the chemo and things like that my husband and I, we put together a recovery plan. Two of the things that we did on that recovery plan was that we went on a trip to Florida, which was just a holiday. And then we went to Kenya. And I wanted to go to Kenya because I wanted to go and do the safari and all of those kind of things, because you start thinking about your bucket list.
Yeah.
So we're in Kenya and we're having the most amazing time. And this one day we drive past this college. It says Teacher Training College. And I just went, that's what I want to do. I want to teach teachers in a developing country. I don't want to teach the children. I want to teach the teachers, because if I teach 10 teachers and they teach 30 kids each, that's 300 children that will have had the effect. I wanted to help the people that didn't have money to go and learn to teach, to teach. So things kind of line up, we say about the stars being aligned and all that kind of thing. At the same point in time, I'm now driven. I'm like, I need to find something. So I went along to a Rotary
You'd had your little light bulb. You just needed to keep it glowing, didn't you?
That's it. So I went along to a Rotary club, Medway Sunlight Rotary in Gillingham, at the first meeting I went to see whether I wanted to join or not. They were doing a presentation on something called Project Link. And Project Link was basically a website you could go on. You could put in the sector that you wanted to work in. You could put in the place in the world, and then it would tell you where projects were taking place, maybe where you could go and volunteer. And the first one that popped up for me was Tea Leaf Trust. It was based in Sri Lanka. It's a British charity, and they wanted somebody to come and teach their teachers and their interns. And within 2 weeks, my flights are booked and I'm going to Sri Lanka. And this was just such perfect timing for me, because I had the freedom to go and do it. I hadn't got my job. But when I got to Sri Lanka, I was not too sure what was happening. It was obviously a new culture and everything. It was the school, the Tea Leaf Trust, is in a place called Maskelia near Adams Peak. It's a really tiny location, market town, middle of nowhere. And I worked there for 2 months with some incredible people that have nothing, but they want to learn so much. They are those natural sponges. And I'd been off work at this point, if I get it right, I think I'd been off work getting on for 18 months from having the hysterectomy 2009.
Yeah.
This is kind of August 2011. I have found my purpose again, because being on long-term sick is really hard. I was a front-facing person. I was happy to face people, perform, as I said before.
Yeah.
And I'd had that arena taken away from me. My confidence had gone. My self-esteem was low. I didn't know what my purpose was anymore. And one of the things is, I associated my being with my job role.
Yeah.
And if you took my job role away, that left me, I was nothing.
It was your identity completely, wasn't it?
It was completely my identity. And I couldn't get my head round that. So when I went to Sri Lanka and worked with the Tea Leaf Trust in the plantations, I helped design a holiday activity program for 7 to 17-year-olds. We rolled it out with 14 team leaders, 80 volunteers, and over 1,700 children attended this 3-day program. And it was such nourishment for you. It's that chicken soup for the soul or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just brilliant. So when I came back home, G said to me, Sonia, you've got your mojo back. If that's what it does for you, being out there, you can go whenever you want, as long as we can afford it. And that's when I had to rethink my career. Because if I worked in education, I had to follow term time.
Yeah.
And I had no flexibility. If I wanted to go back to Sri Lanka, I wanted to go back at different times of the year to see the students through different development phases, be it through their induction or doing their speeches at the end of their academic year and seeing that transformation.
Yeah.
So I decided I needed to become self-employed. And that was what I did. And I made the decision that I'd said already there was no supply for senior leaders. Perhaps I could be the supply for senior leaders. And that's how I started out. My business plan was to be supply for senior leaders. And it was when I was at the tax office at a workshop about doing tax returns and things like that, that I bumped into the vice principal of the local FE college of Medway FE. And she said to me, oh, Sonia, I've heard you're back on the scene. I think I might have something you're interested in.
Excellent.
And the next day I met with her and I got my first self-employed contract to write the programs for their HNDs.
Brilliant. For me, you've talked about a couple of things that almost seem serendipitous, that seem lucky, but actually they're not luck, are they? They are because of the relationships that you're developing, your curiosity and your desire to meet new people or do different things. You know, like the Rotary, you didn't necessarily know people there, but it was like curiosity led you to think, how can I help? And I think that is almost the underlying story of your career, actually. It is because you choose to develop all these relationships that you then become what seems to be lucky, but it's not luck at all.
I think serendipity is the right word. We can all say it's luck, but it's not luck, because I think there are the signs there.
Yeah.
There's something that you see, and the biggest thing for me is about trusting your gut.
Yeah. You
What
have
feels
to be
right?
present. You have to be present
Yeah,
enough in the moment to notice those signs.
yeah.
And then, as you say, trusting your gut is such a big thing.
And it's those little things, and they're not big jumps. They're just
No.
little things that I do, and that they lead to something more. It's only a small thing that you do in the first instance. So, for example, with the Tea Leaf Trust, you know, working there for 2 months, I came back, I joined the Rotary, I stayed with the Rotary Club for 3 years, progressed through them, became the president for Medway Sunlight Rotary Club, and then I carried on writing the grants and getting the funding for the Tea Leaf Trust and for other charities, and seeing other things that you hadn't seen before, because you understand the difficulties and the desperation that they have. And it's far worse than your own.
Yeah.
So,
and that gives you a desire, doesn't it, to burn? There is a burning desire for you to make a difference.
Yeah. It's making a difference and problem solving.
Yeah.
Look, how can we help them and make their life better, but not doing it for them.
Yeah.
Helping them to help themselves to make their life better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a period of about 15 years, haven't you, where you've been self-employed, and it's a proper portfolio career because you've had a number of different things going on at the same time. So, you know, you're an exam assessor. You've had consultancy jobs. You've been on boards for academy trusts.
Yeah.
You've done your fitness as part of that as well, haven't you? There was a time where you were doing it in your garden, and you had a group of PT clients. You did boot camps, so you really have found a way of bringing all your skills together to fuel you, to give you the financial freedom and the opportunity, sort of the time freedom as well, to be able to go off and do these volunteering roles.
I was going to say it's going back to those transitional skills, though, Caroline. You know, you talk about the fitness business. So in amongst all of this, obviously, we did our fostering.
Oh yes,
So we fostered for 10 years. On the back of my health recovery, as part of my recovery plan. Again, making a difference. We didn't want to foster long term because we wanted to foster more than one or two children. We wanted to foster as many as possible to make a difference to as many as possible. So it's the same way as I look at the project work that I do. It's making a difference and helping people, as many as possible. And when you kind of go through that process, making the changes from one to another and how it might work. And the fitness business one came back when I was taking a break. We went to a boot camp for 5 days, you and I. And I'd gone because we'd got 2 boys that had been living with us as foster children, and they were moving on to their long-term carers. And I knew I was going to find it a little bit challenging and emotional, that I needed to do some self-care. And so we'd gone away to boot camp for 5 days for me to eat healthily and exercise.
You'd gone away, I got dragged.
And whilst I was there, and we're listening to a talk on nutrition and what we do, and I'm like, I know all this. This is what I used to, this was my lecturing bread and butter. So I came back home and said to G, I've had a great time and I'm setting up a new business. And then I set up my S Factor Fitness business for 8 years and ran boot camps from the garden and did personal training and life coaching. And absolutely loved that. But I ran that alongside my education consultancy, doing the UTC development and all those things.
I think listening to you, Sonia, the one thing that strikes me is that you don't go through the motions with apps with anything. You know, you're always thinking about what is the value, what is the difference, what is the outcome that I want to achieve here, and you're thinking about how your skills can move the dial and make the biggest difference. And I think, you know, if you think about the conversations that we've had around Little Moves Big Careers, that's one of the biggest things, isn't it? It really is about saying, what does me being here right now, doing what I'm doing, what does it matter? How do I make it matter?
Yeah.
What is that value that I can bring? Because the more we focus on that, the more in tune we become to what we're capable of.
When I've been working in the developing countries, working on this, and I've done work in Asia, Sri Lanka, and South Africa as well over the years, I've found that there is a real desire to know more.
Yeah.
Because actually, for them, yeah, it might be the same. They have no choice. Oh, but they want to make a difference in their world and in everybody else's world around them, their community and their family. And what they can earn as one person to support their family is phenomenal in comparison to what their family currently brings in due to being tea pickers, for example.
Yeah.
And it's giving them that opportunity then to break the poverty cycle.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to do it. But I think the other thing that I do, and you kind of said there, Caroline, are just looking for any opportunity. So do the volunteering with the teachers, or with All Hands and Hearts has been the most recent charity that I've been working with. On each of the projects there, which is international disaster relief, working overseas in difficult circumstances in locations. So, for example, in Poland, supporting Ukrainian refugees, but working with volunteers. And I'm there as a volunteer myself. And it's a case of really roll your sleeves up and get stuck in. But you know what? Even though you've worked for 7 hours on site digging foundations today, we can still do a boot camp style workout tonight with little boulders as our weights. Or on Saturday morning when you've got some time off. And so, yeah, keeping that high energy and drive going forward, in hope that some of it, this sprinkles of some sprinkles go and give everybody else some energy. And my mantra on most of my stuff has always been energy creates energy.
Absolutely.
So with everybody that I hopefully have contact with, they can develop that energy with them as well.
Yeah, managing your state is such an important thing, isn't it? Because again, it's one of those things that you have choices over that people often don't think about. But if you can be a little bit, without being OTT, rah, 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 and get your energy up with people around you, it can make just such a difference. Sonia, the stories that you've got to share and the things that we could talk about could take us on forever.
I know.
I guess we do need to draw it to a close. So, Sonia, it strikes me from everything that you've been talking about, there are a number of really pivotal moments that you've had in your career. And if I think about it as an observer, some of those decisions you made were really, really risky. You know, we've been talked about being bold, but there is a slight twist on it, isn't there? Sometimes you really are stepping into the unknown or taking a huge leap in something that you would never have thought about.
Yeah.
Has there been any particular moment that you thought was, when you look back, you go like, oh my God, did I really do that?
Well, there's been a number of those, but I won't go into all of them. And I suppose it's that career pathway that we follow. So mine has been very, very up and down, but along the way that has involved risk. And there's been some times, so I suppose when I decided in 2004 that I wasn't going to go back to CVIC because actually I was ready for a change. And if something didn't come up, it was my time to travel. And then the next one was, obviously I became self-employed because I wanted to be able to go back to Sri Lanka and work with the Tea Leaf Trust, which I continue to do and still continue to do now. With my, I think my second or third contract as self-employed person, I'd got the opportunity to pitch for a contract to be the project director for developing a £10 million university technical college.
Yeah.
And I got the contract. However, I'd been up against companies that ran project management businesses. And I was just literally little old me on my own, thinking I can do it. Well, you might say,
well, of course she could.
She got the contract because she's going to be cheaper than those bigger companies that have got big overheads. And I remember sitting in the first board meeting of that contract that I got, being faced by somebody from the lead organisation, shooting me down, asking me really challenging questions that I had no idea were coming. They were real curveballs. Meaning I left that meeting thinking, I've got the contract, but I'm not too sure they actually believe in me.
Yeah.
So this really knocked my confidence, and that whole imposter syndrome comes rising back again.
Absolutely.
And you can go into that self-sabotage, and then you kind of brood on something, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And I remember that I went to the next meeting, the same thing happened again with this same person, to somebody else saying to me, have you offended him in the past? Have you if your paths crossed? And I was like, I don't know what it is. So I actually did, again, do something very bold and rang the guy up, asked if we could have a chat. And I asked him outright what it was that he was struggling with me being in the post. And he then explained to me that he felt that I couldn't, I get this, don't I? We don't think you can do the job. He thought that as one person on my own, doing this job, left the organisation that was developing the school open to risk. Because if I was off sick, then they'd be left with nobody leading this project, this whole £10 million of government money.
Yeah.
And what changed then was his relationship with me. Because I'd had the courage to speak to him and say, I'm really uncomfortable with how you're treating me. I think that gave him more confidence in me and respect that he hadn't had prior to that.
Well, he didn't know you from Adam before, did he?
But it did.
It showed your mettle.
Yeah, it did mean, I mean, it is a tough challenge because you can't go under when you're on your own. And so it was 18 months of doing this whole school development project was tough. So worthwhile and so successful at the end. And so he was happy with the outcome, I do believe. But it was just interesting getting that knockback and how you face the knockback, because it was a risk for me to take the contract or even apply for it in the first place. Who on earth thinks you could do that, Sonia? Why do you think you could possibly do that?
Because you could, and you did.
And that needs to go to your listeners as well.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you.
Absolutely.
So it is get that over there.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because he didn't deal with that very professionally. You know, you would expect somebody that had such grave concerns to be airing those concerns to you directly, to be exploring maybe what does the organisation need to do to help you be successful. You know, wow. But actually, if you are ever in that situation and somebody is behaving strangely towards you, the worst thing you can do is just not address it. You know, you have to just front up to it and find out what's going on for them.
I think you're right, Caroline.
It's not a confrontation. It's just asking the question, help me understand.
And so often with those little hurdles that we face, we think they're massive barriers. But if you actually do face them, you walk away thinking, why was I worrying about that?
Absolutely.
You know,
but that little voice in our head makes it worse and worse. And we're thinking about the worst that could happen, not the best that could happen all the time. And invariably, it's never anywhere near as bad as you think it is.
The whole personal sabotage can be quite reckless to your own development. And sometimes you've got to beat it back down, but you've got to bounce back. And that's one of the words I use all the time is just bounceability.
Yeah.
And just keep bouncing.
Brilliant. Sonia, thank you so much. We have covered so many topics today. Your career is actually a masterclass in a portfolio career, and it's a masterclass in understanding that your job title doesn't define you. You can be whatever you want to be if you're choosing. So make those really sound choices for you. Yeah. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Loved it.
So what did you make of that conversation then? Isn't Sonia's career just a masterclass in choosing to thrive, making bold decisions and fronting up to life's curveballs, the big, the small, and the properly life-altering? She leaves very little to chance and puts a hell of a lot on the table. And you know what? I'm pretty sure she's nowhere near done yet. And I, for one, will be cheering her on every step of the way. This interview was actually 3.5 hours long, so I had to be really ruthless in the edit. But if you're sitting there thinking, I want to hear more, don't worry, because part 2 drops on Tuesday. And that's where we specifically go deeper on both transferable skills and bounce back ability. I'll also be sharing some short clips on YouTube focused on some really important themes from our chat, including, as you would expect, volunteering, navigating dementia from a daughter's perspective, time management, and, that little gremlin, imposter syndrome, because there's so much more that we just don't have time to cover in the podcast. If there's anything you want to discuss with me from this episode, please then just give me a shout on caroline@inspireyourgenius.com. And we'll be making links in the show notes to any of the organisations that we've been discussing today for you. And all that leaves me to say is, as always, make your move, even if it's tiny, especially if it's tiny. Until next week.